Builders need to talk to builders, don't they?
Yeah, 100%.
Openly.
Openly, yeah.
G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We are back in the shed this afternoon for another cracking episode. We've got one half of an incredible duo here this afternoon that is sort of setting a pretty high standard in Brisbane for being a boutique builder, sort of high-end new homes and renovations. So a big warm welcome to Fraser from Allen Brothers Construction. How are you, mate?
Good, mate, good.
Mate, thanks for taking some time out. Come and sit with us and hopefully tell us your story and a bit of what goes on in your life and the industry and stuff. So
Yeah, no, thanks for having us.
Yeah, what the brother didn't want to tag along and get involved?
Oh, I think when you approached me about this, I think I said, is Kurt coming? And then he was sort of arming and ahhing, and it wasn't until just the other day. And I said, I think they want both of us there. And he's like, oh, no, sorry, mate, I've got something on. So it just didn't work out. So
No,
yeah.
all good. Mate, I think you've got a great story. Like we've ran into each other a few times over the years at different seminars and bits and pieces. I think like you do great work, and like obviously it's pretty challenging in the market that you're in and that type of work. So like how you just mentioned off air that like you've just gone 10 years in February.
Yeah, it's come around really quick, actually. So, 10 years in business, and prior to that, that was 2013, and then prior to that, so I finished my apprenticeship 2009, and I did my apprenticeship under Kurt, and then, obviously...
that's got to be unusual, doing your apprenticeship under your brother.
Yeah, well, even prior to the apprenticeship as well, like after school, did a bit of mucking around here or there, and then Kurt had his own little business doing decks and pergolas and bathrooms. I sort of went and did some trade assistance work for him, and until he landed a really solid job as a carpenter supervisor for a pretty renowned builder in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And I just tagged along with him doing a bit of labouring until that builder offered me an apprenticeship straight away, and
awesome.
Been basically working full time with each other ever since. So,
mate, 10 years in as a custom home builder is a pretty big milestone because, as we both know, it can be quite challenging at times.
Yeah.
Like, what is having your own boutique building business something you guys always wanted to do? Or
I can't probably. If I was honest, probably not. Never really thought of it. I wasn't one of your typical, or probably your typical guests that you have on here as builders, or those stories you hear of. I've always dreamt to be a builder and that kind of thing. Maybe a bit different for Kurt. He left school at a young age and got into his apprenticeship pretty quick. And me personally, I sort of finished grade 12, didn't know what I wanted to do. It took a few years, like I said before, trade assistant for him, sort of figuring out what I wanted to do, and was working for a really, really good builder who is still operating today, and I look up to him pretty highly, but sort of kicked me in a gear about doing my builder's license.
Yeah.
And again, not really thinking that we were going to do something together, Kurt and I, and then Kurt got his license or started training for it individually to me, and then it just worked out that we got licensed at the same time, and thought, let's start a thing together.
So how's it gone? How have you gone getting to 10 years? Like have you had a few struggles along the way?
Look, without a doubt, definitely struggles, learning curves. I think that goes without saying, really, no matter what business you'd be in. I think there'd be a few struggles and learning curves. No secret that the last few years in the industry has been pretty difficult. So, that's one definitely to mark. But, obviously got through it all. And
so what's some of the struggles you've had, like getting into business and obviously being long term? Like you're a pretty stable business now.
Yep.
Like I follow you on Instagram. You do some incredible homes. Like you've got great relationships with designers and architects. So that like that just all doesn't happen. Like what's some of the struggles you've had along the way?
Oh, look, nothing really stands out in mind apart from like I say, the last 2 years. That a lot stands out there. But prior to that, I think it's just learning curves along the way. Like, we obviously didn't just jump into the market that we see ourselves in now, although it did happen pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like I said, the builder we were working for does pretty high-end work still to this day. So we knew we sort of wanted to get there, I suppose.
Yeah.
But started out just doing your old, like most of us probably, your old bathroom reno, and turned into $100,000 renovation, into a $300,000 renovation. And then we're probably really, like looking back, really lucky, daunting at the time, but we were about a year into business, I think, and a contract came our way that ended up turning into a $1.25 million job.
Yeah.
That was pretty daunting. Sort of friends of Kurt, and awesome clients. They approached us, and then we didn't really, know how to approach it or anything, and we just jumped into it, and it worked out really well. And from there, everything sort of just ticked over. So, that was probably one of the hardest things, actually, is sort of appearing that, you've had experience in those, but you really haven't.
Yeah.
But we...
So that's a pretty common thing for a lot of younger guys or anyone, doesn't matter what age, but trying to get a building business going. Like just that thing of like, how do I prove my experience? Like, how did you overcome that?
Well, I think going back, that like I said, they're friends of friends with Kurt. He's 7 years older than me, so probably from age that, he had a bit of an experience then. And then they knew he was, although we hadn't been a building company for a while, like the experience there as carpenters were there.
Yeah.
And both consider ourselves pretty knowledgeable in the area, in the industry as well.
Yeah.
So, and look, I take my hats off to those clients. They just, they trusted us and probably took a massive leap. And approached us, and then with us as well, we didn't really have that much money behind us. We'd been contracting a few years, and like I said, those small renovations and just not spending a dime, just spending what you had to get week by week, and then had some money there, and we just invested in ourselves in the sense of through my builder's license course, my Cert 4, learned about estimating software and going out to quantity surveyors to get. So we did that. We spent money on that software straight up, learning how to use it, and then a quantity surveyor on that job as well, just so we could basically pinch all their numbers and enter it into our system and
get some reassurance.
Reassurance, and we just went from there, and then ended up hitting all of our targets and making profit and doing all of that, and it's just snowballed from there. So,
like obviously you've been estimating quite well from the beginning if you've gone to that sort of level. So like I'm a big believer now, like you've got to invest in yourself, in your business. The sooner you do it, the more successful, or the sooner you will be successful. But like, how important do you think relationships are? Like that job was obviously
huge.
built off a relationship, but even once you become successful, like to me in our business, the relationship is everything. Like we don't look for our blue or green or red job, whatever it is that people tell you to look for. Like we look for the perfect client and the great relationship.
Yeah, and like you said before, like our relationship probably just isn't with the client. We've gone out of our way to make really good relationships with architects and designers, and it's quite funny, like around that time after completing that project, so that was definitely a relationship with the client, but we always sort of had this, whether it's a saying or whatever, you didn't really need an architect to project manage the job or whatever, and going off that thing, who are they to think they can come and run our job? And it wasn't long until we got a few other projects under our belt working with really good architects it was just gold, that relationship, and you get onto a good one, they know the procedure of building, and you bounce ideas off each other, and you're working as that collaborative team. So in a sense, like maybe it was luck, or maybe things just fell into place, but we learnt all those little things along the way really early.
Like I remember having that same sort of attitude. Like what are they? Who do they think they are? Come on in here, tell us how to do things and all that. But obviously it comes with experience and knowledge and getting older and all those types of things. But again, it's relationships, and exactly the same as you. Like I love having a great relationships with a designer and architect that comes on site, and we work as a team, and we brainstorm things. Everyone draws some sketches. Even my supervisor might get involved. Like you work together, and ultimately you're trying to get the best outcome you can for the client. So, and
it starts a long time before that too, as you know, and I know you do the same. But you're not just handed a set of plans at a tender stage. That those designers and architects have been working on that project 6, 12, sometimes 18 months, and are so heavily invested into that project, and they know all the bits and pieces, and they send it out to tender, and you got 3 or 4 weeks to price it up, and then next minute you won the job, you sign on a contract, and you know what I mean, and they expect you to know just as much about the project as they do. So we don't do that in majority of cases. We'll be working along with the client and designer, and
you're involved in all that nitty gritty, and you understand why something's been done, or I'm sure you're in a position where they ring you up and they might run some ideas by you and all that type of stuff. So you're in the job. Like, by the time you get the contract, you've built it in your head 10 times.
100%. And that's like, we get asked all the time, like we're in a little group of builders that sit down and chat with each other, and some of the guys outsource their pricing, and that's one thing, you're always thinking about what you can delegate and sort of outsource to free up a bit more of your time to do some other things. But there's one thing that we've always been big on is pricing in-house and pricing ourselves, because
me too.
Exactly that. I do all of our pricing. Kurt majority does all the supervision on sites, a lot of our sites, and I price it. I've built the thing 10 times in my head before we've even gone to contract. Kurt goes to build it, and that's probably one of our advantages too, because we I did my apprenticeship for him, we basically build exactly the same way when we're on site. So it's, there's not too many questions that have to go back and forth on how it was priced to achieve the outcome that everyone wants. So.
Oh, no, look, definitely nothing against quantity surveys and things, but I do believe in the one-off custom jobs, like when you are heavily involved through that design stage and you know what things been done and how they've been done, you can't beat pricing it yourself.
100%. Like I've always said it too, and sometimes you might come in a little bit heavier than some other tenders and you find out they have just sent it to a quantity surveyor, and I'm like you, I've got nothing against quantity surveyors. I think they've got a place in the market for sure.
Yeah.
And sometimes some projects we have been where the price checks the word or up against a quantity surveyor just to make sure quantity's right, and I can pick those to pieces, and it generally comes down to having a builder that has experience building that. Because like you say, when you're pricing it, you build it, it's not just doing a material takeoff to say we need 10 joists at 4.8. You might need some extra ones to do some blocking here and do this and do that, and that's why you're a little bit dear on that component. You know? So,
it's like when you give a framing company a set of drawings to price a frame, like they never allow for all the extra blocking for cladding joints or framing out gables or framing soffits, like all that little stuff that you only know from being on site and having that experience over multiple custom homes and different scenarios.
And that's why I don't send it to framing companies anymore. I just do all my own takeoffs, and we know it just all works out. So
we're the same. And look, it definitely takes time. But obviously, like yourself, like that's where you got to get yourself in a position where you delegate things and you have other team members that are like your brother's doing the site supervision and you're doing the admin stuff. But I think a lot of builders, well, I know a lot of builders just don't understand their numbers. They just feel trapped, and they're trying to do everything themselves because they feel like, oh shit, I can't win a job as it is. If I put my price up to put an admin staff on, I'm going to price myself out of the game. But that's really not the case. Like you're in a position now where you've got enough runs on the board, like you're selling your service, like you're selling the value that you bring to the table with your estimating, getting involved through the design, and that is what's really valuable, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And like none of those things really like come easy, or it wasn't something we just learnt along the way or anything. It was again maybe working with that builder that I did my apprenticeship for and seeing how he ran that business, and I just thought it was second nature that when you're dealing with the amount of costs coming in and out that a building company does, it blows my mind that,
especially on a custom build.
Yeah, it blows my mind that you hear that some people aren't having good cost control and with everything that's coming in and out. But, obviously it does happen a lot more than what we probably know. So.
Well, look, even like you touched on before, like the quantity surveyors on a custom build, like, they might get the bulk of the materials, the concrete, the bricks, all that sort of thing, spot on the money. Your fixings and all the plastering, tiling, all that sort of stuff. But no custom job is ever the same. And like when you are heavily in the pricing and building the job in your mind, like especially when there's structural steel or something that's a bit more complicated involved, like you just know that your team's going to take a certain amount of time to do it the way that you want it done to get the quality you want, and no quantity surveyor is going to ever know how you do things.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, we've stuffed it up a few times too, in the sense without anyone knowing. The client doesn't know, the architect doesn't know, and we collect the data, and when you stuff up in one area, if you do, you might make up for it elsewhere, but you've collected that data and you can adjust the figures and for the next one. And no two jobs are the same, but you've got that data there, and we look back on it. Nearly every job that we price, I look back.
Yeah, data's huge, isn't it? Like tracking all your costs so you can. And look, we're the same. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. Like custom homes, there is always something here and there that will come up, especially in the last couple of years.
More carpentry labour and it will always blow out.
But if you're not tracking the hours your carpenters are spending on things, like I use the example, like my boys used to get the shits. Like I'd rock up to site, I was like, what the fuck he has done? Like what he is doing? And it was all because I knew in my mind, like I had a carpentry figure and I was keeping an eye on every week, and I knew they were going over, and we might only been finishing frame up, and we still had cladding and soffits and but once we started tracking our carpentry really, really well, obviously I started allowing more to cover what it was actually taking. And then it takes the stress away because I know I've covered my costs. It means that I turn up on site and I'm, how you going, boys? Great job, because that pressure's gone.
Oh, and the last thing they want to know is numbers.
Yeah.
That just turns guys away from you in the first place. But we were sort of the same. Like, yes, we have always tracked our numbers, but we probably didn't break it down. Like speaking carpentry, for example, we didn't break it down as thoroughly as we do now. And that's changed everything. So in the sense of, we used to just obviously get the guys to clock in and clock out, or write their hours down in diary and submit their timesheets and would have that. But you'd go well over your carpentry allowance, but you weren't necessarily getting them to break it down into how much time they were doing for site prep and doing profiles and foundations and slab prep and all that other thing, and general labour and coming along and core filling blocks and helping the bricky out. And if that's all going as carpentry labour and you get to the end of the job and you're going 30 grand over carpentry labour and you're pulling your hair out and you're screaming at your guys that they need to pick up the pace because, hey, when we used to be on the tools, we never went over budget, and but if you weren't collecting your data, you haven't realised that, hey, my concrete and allowance has gone under budget by $5,000 and my block lay and general labour has gone under and all those little things, so if you're not collecting data, you just don't know.
It's look, I believe that the estimating, and like we call it proposal, like the estimating you put together to prepare and present a proposal, it's the most important document and part of the job besides signing a contract. Obviously we've got our own software. We built quoties. Like one of the things we did when we first built our software, like I used to, back in the day, like I started basically with a bloody pages with just all lines on it, and I'd write down the heading and I'd write down the cost, and like I'd sit in the office with my office girl and we'd flick through all the cost sheet, enter it into the accounting software, and then obviously it kept growing into a spreadsheet. But like I could never find anything that gave me a list of every item from the start to the finish. So one thing we do have in quoties, like you have the option to basically press a button, and I don't know how many items there are in there, but it basically covers everything from your site prep, your preliminaries, all the way through to your final builder's clean and all your architect fees and those things. And you can basically just delete what you don't want. But I was just talking to another chippy about this the other day, and that's what he was asking, like, how do you make sure you cover everything? And I say, well, my view is I would rather have an enormous list there in my estimating and delete things.
That's exactly what we do.
Because I would rather jog my memory and go, oh shit, I better flick through the plans, I'm not sure on that. Rather than every job trying to come up with a new list. Because back in the day, I'd miss shit all the time. And that's it's just, they're the types of things that you don't get taught, do you? Like when you get your builder's license, or even when you go to an estimating seminar or course, like nothing really gives you an example of all the shit that you have to price as a custom builder. And
I think you'd do pretty well if you could do a course like that. But I think there's just too many guys out there that when you start, you're not provided any of that information anywhere. And there's too many rumours going around or things going around where people say that a builder should be charging this, you know, and you work out your costs, and again, who knows what your costs are if you're not even calculating everything properly or including everything in the first place. And then add in a silly percentage on top.
Mate, our whole industry needs to get away from, like, everybody in it, clients, media, architects, designers, like everyone needs to get away from throwing these percentages around that builders should make. Because at the end of the day, it's everyone's different. Like your business is different to my business. I'm different to the next guy. Like you could be a one-man band with a nail bag on that's on the tools every day, doing office work at night. You might have a couple of supervisors. Like there's so many different scenarios that will change the cost. And then on top of that, like you might use a hardwood weatherboard. I might use a pre-prime weatherboard. Like there's thousands of products that go into a building, and even when it's spec'd out and everyone thinks they're getting apples for apples, every builder's got their own way of doing something.
100%. And so, and go back to that, not ragging on quantity surveyors at all, but going back to that only because it's fresh in my mind. We had it a couple of months ago where the architect wasn't tendering the project, but it was us, and then the client actually opted to get a quantity surveyor's bill of quantities. Going through it, and it was exactly that example. All these materials they were putting in there, it was just not relevant to the job. And it was around that structural steel. We allowed all this extra auxiliary timber to brace all the steel up, which they don't allow for that because it's, and so
And that's all the shit that adds up. Like it's
100%.
all those little, and like it's one conversation I try and have with my clients. Like there is so many things on a project that they have to pay us for that come and go. Like you said, all that extra bracing and time to do that bracing, and like scaffolding, like unless you're having those conversations with scaffolding companies, like fair enough, some jobs are just boxes, you just put the scaffolding up, but like you might have jobs that need some full height scaffold, some edge protection, some lightweight to go over a lower roof. Like if you're not getting your head around the drawings and having those conversations with the scaffolding companies and pricing all that up accurately, like the difference between builders' quotes can be like huge.
100%. And we don't really present any proposals now without already doing the full schedule.
Yeah.
We like Imagine You and most good custom builders out there run full Gantt schedules and online client portal where the client can actually be engaged with it and view it and all that as well. But when we do a proposal, one of our check measures is going through and doing that schedule, and exactly like that, you go through and you go, oh, we need to, you got an off-formed concrete wall that needs to be formed there, and it's definitely going to need scaffold, but that's well and truly before the roof's going on, where you generally get scaffold in.
Yeah.
But, and that might make you trigger. You go, okay, I need an extra allowance then before you present that proposal. So there's no point, in my opinion, doing that schedule and figuring all that once you've already presented the quote to the client. And then you've got to try and, adjust your figures and all that. And straight away, you're going backwards. So.
Yeah. We don't do a full schedule, but we definitely do as we're pricing it, we do an outline. Like we know where the job's going to sit. I think any builders...
You've built it in your head already.
Yeah. Any builders that aren't doing... Well, mate, there's lots of builders that don't even do a schedule when they get the job. And then they wonder why they got no time and shit. They're running around writing dates in their diary and calling people every day to turn up and do stuff.
Oh, it wasn't long ago. Oh, actually, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago now. No, it'll be that 6 or 7 years. But anyway, our schedule was a printout of an Excel spreadsheet on A3, and it was all pencil, and every day it would be your eraser on here and rubbing it out and doing that, and it's developed a little bit since then. But again, it blows my mind that.
But it's one of those things, but like you don't know what you don't know. But when you do start getting into schedules, I actually saw everything in our business we keep really basic and simple because that's just me, and I know my team. Like, it's not simple, no one uses it, but like we use Tom's Planner for our schedules. It's the simplest tool ever to use. But mate, they've just released literally in the last couple of weeks, like brought AI in.
Yeah, right.
So you can literally set up a job folder now in Tom's Planner. We'll have to hit them up for some sponsorship. You can you can talk to it and say, I want to build a house, give me a schedule, and it will give you the full outline of a schedule. And then you can just go in and adjust it if you want to. But then if you want more detail on a particular item, like say it's got foundations in there, you can say, give me more information on foundations. It'll spit out another 10 or 20 items that you can then delete or save.
Wow. Is that getting too technical for you? You're saying you want to keep it simple.
Mate, I just think, what I'm getting at is that there's literally no excuse now for builders not to be getting on and using some form of software.
You'd hope, as without putting down too many of the older generation, but you'd think as time goes on and more of the younger guys are coming through the ranks and all that, people are pretty savvy on technology and running schedules and that. But it's about learning and knowing that you need to do that. But going in our case, it's we only did it because when I was working for a builder, we were working off schedules, that were the pen and paper ones. And
I think that's a good example of our industry. Like we end up just doing what we see others doing.
Yep.
If you're working for an older school builder that's still got all these receipts in his glove box and running around with his diary, that's pretty much what you're going to fall into.
Yeah. I was only thinking about that and actually talking about it with someone the other day. They're saying, I had to go through all the old files in the office. And like I say, we've been in business for 10 years now, and since day dot, everything has basically been on hard drives and store it. I don't know what it would be like to have a filing cabinet, So,
Sorry to interrupt, guys, but we've got to thank our sponsors, because without them, we can't keep delivering you this incredible podcast. So massive shout out to DPS Constructions, Quotees, Live Life Build, and 44 Gallon Films. Make sure you go and check those guys out, support them so that we can keep delivering you this incredible podcast. Who's in your team? Like how many, you mentioned you're in the office, do the estimating.
Yep.
Kurt does the supervision.
Yeah, so it's a pretty tight-knit little group. So we got 6 carpenters that work for us.
Yeah.
And it's been on and off. Like a few years ago, we had a few more than that. And then for a while there, we had a few less as well. But 6 is a pretty good number.
Yeah.
And all of our guys, except the odd apprentice that has come through. I think our youngest apprentice is 2 years in now, but another apprentice is 3rd year. And then our 2 other guys, 2 of our chippies have been with us 5 years. One guy's been with us for 4 years and another guy for 9, coming up nearly 10 years actually.
Yeah.
So like a long crew of guys that have hung around with us for a while.
Yeah.
And then my wife does a few days in the office a week and mainly looks after all the accounts and all that. So it wasn't that long ago that I was doing all of that as well, but which has been pretty hard. And it was probably one area that I always knew I needed to let go of, but couldn't. So a few years ago we got her in the office looking after all that. We've always had a bookkeeper that we've paid a little bit extra to do a lot of the that kind of side of
Admin
things,
stuff.
the admin and general admin and stuff. But yeah, so apart from that, we don't really have any other office staff running. Kurt and I do a lot of it, and then our chippies as well. So, and then direct team of trades. So we like to think we've got a pretty good core group of guys too. That again, like our carpenters have been with us for a long time. Like our painters been with us for 8 or 9 years or something. And same with plumbers, not quite as long, but yeah,
it's the same thing, mate, isn't it? So it's like to have a quality, successful business. It's all about relationships.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. If you're chasing cheaper pricing all the time, or screwing trades around, or not paying bills on time, like you're not going to have that consistency of trade showing up on time, doing quality work for you, all that stuff. Like relationships across the board play a big part, don't they?
Huge. And like I only had a new meeting with another architect yesterday, and the same thing, sort of told him a bit about our business and our background, and the same conversation came up. And I said we don't fish around for the cheapest price with our trades. And a couple of things, we've got really good relationships with them all, but we're that over our pricing that I'd know straight away if someone was sort of trying to take us for a ride, And coming in the last couple of years, that loyalty that we've had with all of those guys, none of them have come to us and just hiked everything like you've heard stories of everyone else, which has essentially saved us. And they appreciate loyalty, so do we. And here we still are, still here, and everyone's making money. And
you've done some pretty big jobs through COVID, haven't you? I saw there was one big. Was that big one on acreage or something?
Out in Camp Mountain. So that's still our biggest project to date. Is our biggest project to date. And we signed that, I think the date now, but it was probably 2 or 3 months prior to the world about to end. So that was one of, that and another project was probably our like, oh crap, what are we going to do here kind of moment. But we got through it. And without saying, there was a few challenging things and challenging decisions, and I've said to a few people, and I'm wondering whether I've told the client that too, but if we had that same project, like majority of ours being in a city, I don't think we'd be here today, with the amount of increase in costs. And there's a lot of structural steel in the ground. And
so what do you mean in the city? Like what?
Oh, like just the storage on because it was on acreage. We pre-ordered everything, so cash flow was shocking for a few months. Again, we were lucky we were in a position to be able to make that move and pre-purchase everything. And again, it comes down, without patting ourselves on the back too much, but scheduling, knowing what was coming up.
Pat yourself on the back.
But scheduling, knowing what was coming up, knowing when we needed gear, what materials was in, everything was quoted, having those relationships with suppliers that, they were straight on the blower and saying, look, you need to have an order in by this, or else it's going up astronomical. So and that's one area, the structural steel component for that job, I remember to purchase the steel was nearly 80 grand. And that was, to be all drafted and all hot dip galvanized bolted connections everywhere. And you know what it's like, when it's that large, you can't have too many things go wrong without it being a complete failure. So Kurt and I just got in the office and make sure we'd checked over all the drafting. We spent weeks just making sure all the details were right and collecting all the information, because we hadn't even dug dirt yet, and we had all the structural steel rock up. And,
but that, mate,
it went together like.
That's a credit to you, that, and that's really what's needed to be successful in this industry. Like, you got to be ahead of the game. Again, back to relationships with your suppliers, with your contractors. I'm glad you mentioned you have that conversation with clients and architects about you don't shop around, because we have the same thing. Like we do the pack process now. Through Live Life Build, for us, it's the relationships are the most important thing, and we get our clients in, they know the way we work, they do our pack processes. There is very little discussion about costs when it comes to margins and things, but occasionally you'll get the client that does sort of say, oh, would you mind me using my own painter, or would you mind me using my own plumber, or whatever. And we're pretty against that. We're the same as you. We've got a really core team, and for us, it's not about the dollar value. It's about the relationship, knowing that they know the job in and out. We've had a few meetings, we've discussed things, we've resolved problems. We know they'll show up when we want them. We know they'll give us all the appropriate paperwork at the end of the job, all those types of things. But I say to my clients, look, I guarantee you, like if I tell you the price of my plumbing, you're going to find a cheaper plumber.
Yep.
Because he hasn't had all the conversations with me. He doesn't know how we work. He's not going to turn up when I want him to turn up. He's not going to give me the paperwork.
And that other plumber probably thinks he's going to get a foot in the door with your business where there's ongoing work, so he might try and reduce that cost and probably just create problems with the job as well. So.
Yeah, look, we put our foot down on that now. We pretty much outlaw it. If you want to build with DPS Constructions, it's me and my team.
Yep.
It was,
we're pretty firm on that too. Like I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but when it's happened, but there has been cases like it and it's never worked out well. So I can't remember really the last time it's happened. So.
Yeah, we've had the odd client that's like they've been in the industry and that's different because it's their home. They can supply their own materials or labour or whatever it is. But for me, again, it comes back to that relationship thing. Like to be successful, build those relationships, and like you just said, like all that work you guys put in, sorting out that structural steel, like that's all things that clients, designers, architects probably aren't really thinking about. Like they don't realise that you're spending all that time. Like I think a lot of people just think as builders as we're on site. Yeah. Like we're there, we've got the nail bag on, we're building a house.
Yep.
But
most of the designers and architects we work with now sort of have learned our roles within the business, know that predominantly I'm not in the office all the time. It does my head in if I'm in there 8 hours a day or all week. So, I try and get out to a few sites most mornings and add a little bit of input, but generally they know that I'm in the office from 10, 11 o'clock onwards, and any of that contractual kind of stuff or pre-construction kind of stuff they get onto me, and likewise with Kurt, they know his role within the business too. So.
Yeah, but it's a big overhead, isn't it? Like
huge,
a building business, again, like I said before, builders have to know their numbers so they can allow enough to cover these sorts of costs, because like a lot of people probably heard me talk about, like with the systems library we've developed for Live Like Build, like it's clear as day on paper. Like there's like nearly 80% of the tasks it takes to run a successful business are actually off-site.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I haven't done that kind of data collecting before, but like when we first started out, no doubt we probably just got you would have heard it a million times, your cost plus 15%. That's what it costs to run a building business. Yeah. And I can't remember the exact figure we would have put on that contract or those first few anyway, but it would have been something like that maybe. But going into those first few jobs where we collected data, we quickly realised and how much time was being spent off-site, even though we were on the tools 100% of the time too, but it was, I remember always being told, figure out the hours that you're spending at home that you just essentially think's free work, you know, you're up to 11 o'clock at night doing paperwork, that's not free, it comes at a cost.
Mate, if builders... Like if builders track their hours, they actually do. I would challenge all builders out there for 3 months. Track your hours on site. Yep. Track every hour you spend on the phone, in the office, doing the admin work. Yep. And if you, even over a 3 month period, if you divide it up, I guarantee you'll be working for probably half or less than what your carpenters are.
Yeah, 100%. And we probably don't go to that length of like, when I'm on site for an hour or two, I probably don't clock in and clock out. Like we've got an app now that all of our guys literally clock in and clock out, like the old bloody check-in. But for the last maybe 12, 18 months, I've actually been doing that in the office, estimating jobs, even just knowing how long you spend estimating, and not just estimating, but when you get to a contract price and then it's never sign on the bottom line straight away, you're spending the next 2 months doing cost saving ideas and going through all of that. So we've got different cost codes for all of that too that collectively go under the estimate, and you quickly realise that you can burn $6 or $7 grand worth of your time just before you've even signed a contract. And
the other thing that you've really got to consider is when you start allocating your hours to different things, like you really should be getting paid for the roles you play in the business. So like if you're doing estimating, what is it going to cost you per hour to have an estimator in your office? If you're doing accounting, what's it going to cost to have a full-time accountant or bookkeeper in your business? And you need to be allocating those rates. And when you do that and you're including them in your overhead, that's how you get to a point where you've got the overhead to cover to put those staff on. But look, I guess again, it's one of those things you don't know what you don't know. Like I didn't know it for years. I busted my balls, and we were the same. We were throwing 10 and 15% on, and like it shits me to tears, because even now when you get most building contracts, like the default figure is 10 or
Shouldn't even be a
15%.
default though. That's the thing.
But like for an uneducated builder,
Yeah.
like they're gonna go, oh, like I know I did, like oh, the industry's got that there, it must be right.
Yeah.
Like, it must work.
I had a sort of homeowner developer get on to me a few weeks ago actually, and we were going back and forward and showed me a few projects. They looked really exciting and sort of going back and forward with a few emails. And anyway, one of the emails was, "Yep, I've gone through and I've got all my frame and truss quoted. I've got this, and I've added 10% on there for the builder." And I was just like, "Wow, is that still like? Does that work for people? I don't know. I mean, can you really get someone to do it for 10%? And they probably will. That's the sad thing.
There would be thousands of builders out there operating on 10 and 15%. And look, I'll challenge builders. I guarantee any builder out there that's running on those margins, that is why you have no cash in the bank. That's why you got no cash flow. That's why you're chasing your tail. That's why you want that next contract to pay for the last one.
And, without harping on and about costing so much, but we know we do it pretty well, costing side of things. We know we deliver a great product as well. And I know what our personal finances are like. I'll be the first one to admit I'm not rolling around in millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm not, driving your Ferraris and doing all that, which, some people in the industry sort of show off that they are. But I just know what it costs to run a business, a profitable business, and deliver the quality outcomes that the client wants, the architect wants, and we want as a business. And we make $1 on the side. You know?
I get it now. Like knowing everything I know now, like I 100% get it why clients, designers, architects sort of think 10 to 15% is fine. Like even if you do $100,000 or $500,000 project, everyone just goes 10%, $500,000. You're making $50,000.
Yeah,
like
do that 4 times a year. That's all right, kind.
Yeah, but they don't realise that like everything else we purchase, like it doesn't matter what it is, like clothing, retail, whatever. Like if you were to spend $500,000 on clothing, you'd probably be paying like 30, 40, 100, 200% markup. So
And with that too, like I think there's a lot of clients, architects, designers, everyone else in the industry that probably don't realise what it actually costs to run your business before you even make $1.
Yeah.
And I actually I have that conversation with them all the time, but I had it with one of our architects a few weeks back, and he was like, "Really? That's what it costs you?" I was like, "Before we even open the doors, that's what it costs us every year to run a business." So, and same, like I use it sort of as ammo with clients, because as you've probably figured out, we're big on the numbers side of things, and I'm sort of like you. I've heard you say before. I think having your numbers right and your proposal is basic. Maybe I'm biased because I do all the estimating, but it's probably one of the most important things of a build.
Yeah, it is.
And all the horror stories that mum and dad clients hear that Joe Blow up the road had an absolutely horrible experience because they got halfway through their build and, the builder was doing this and, they needed tiles on site and they only gave them a week's notice and then it was a 3-month delay and all the shit stories that they hear, it comes down because they didn't price it right in the first
100%.
place. And if
they don't price it right,
if Barry the builder has stuffed a few things up in his estimate, he still knows he needs to build it for the price that he's quoted on. So he's going to cut every corner he can to still try and get it over the line. And then 2 years later, you got leaking roofs and this and that. And
if you don't know your data, you don't quote your jobs properly, you go to contract, you're just drowning in stress.
100%.
Mate, it's a massive problem in the industry. Mate, after COVID, we know from all the data and everything we do with Live Like Build, the average custom residential builder is taking somewhere between 14 and 22% to run a business, and that is before you have even put profit on. And you tell people those numbers, they're like, "What the hell? How can it cost that much?" And we've done a few videos on my social media. Like people have, when I tell people how much insurance we pay a year, when you combine work cover,
it's only going up every year.
In public liability, indemnity insurance, all that stuff. In our business, we're paying over $100. I think it's nearly $130,000 in all of our insurances.
Yeah, it would be up there too. Yeah,
it's and again, it's all about education. People don't know their numbers, but I believe data is the number one reason our industry is the way it is because we're not getting taught enough when we do our licensing. We're not getting taught enough when we do estimating or quantity surveying courses and those types of things. And so builders are going to contract losing money before they even start the job. And I think people hear me bang on about it. I think it's so much of it is led by the big volume builders. I think my personal belief is we need to be separated. There should be a certain turnover like I think it should be as low as 10 million. Like if you turn over more than 10 million and you do, I don't know, say more than 40 homes a year, you're in a volume builder class.
Yep.
Because everything changes. The overheads are different. All the costings are different. A lot of the rules and regulations change because we're just different. Because and those guys lead the industry, so everyone thinks that they can get, like, they see a billboard with a sign on it for a 4-bedroom home, 2-bath, double garage, whatever, 290 grand or something.
Yep.
And
it's crazy.
They come to us and they're like, well,
so you still get inquiries too to price against one of the big guys?
Oh, we haven't for I couldn't even tell you the last time.
You get the one off every now and then. Obviously, I hope you don't mind me saying it, you're taking over that job at the moment that you've posted.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be more education on that type of thing, because I even personally showed that to a few people that I know.
Mate, that video went nuts.
There's a massive difference, and this is exactly the reason why.
It's funny. I actually had another meeting on that site this week. The client has been able to get us a hold of a lot of information. And actually, the worst thing that came out of this week, talking to some of the other trades on site there, that builder is still trading. He has already set up another name and is still trading in the same area. I was like, how does that happen? So they I won't name the company, but they basically left somewhere around 60 homes unfinished. They owe close to $9 million, and this clown's been able to just...
And that was all of a few weeks ago, and he's already operating?
I think they went into insolvency in November, December last year, so we're 5-6 months ago. But we're hoping to do a few more videos on that project. But as soon as you walk onto that site, you can see that it hasn't been priced correctly. There's been no supervision allowed for. But I feel sorry. We've been able to get our hands on some of the details of some of the other trades. So this week, I was able to meet the aircon contractor, Sparky, the plumber, and they're actually really good dudes, and their part of it looks fine. But when it comes to the quality of the concreting and the framing and the cladding and the little bit of fit out and defeats and stuff that have been done, it is atrocious.
So, I don't even remember firsthand, one thing I'm really, really glad I did is, so Kurt, he did his apprenticeship for a one-off, old school builder. He learnt everything from commercial to, learnt a lot. And then he went out and did a lot of contracting work for your volume builder type builds, and then got that supervisor's role in the high end market. And that's how I learnt. And then he always said to me, mate, you'll learn so much going out and contracting. Yeah. And I did that. The first 18 months out of my time, I went and did some contracting, went and got some trade apprentices from all trades, and just went for it, and I lasted about 18 months because it was getting worse and worse over that time. And looking back, I'm surprised I lasted 18 months. Yeah. But you just, for one, you couldn't make any money. And then you just seen your standards sort of slowly lowering and lowering and lowering. And I hate to admit that. That's why I got out of it, because I couldn't get to that, that low. Yeah. And because you're basically just told from anyone, don't care about the next trade, just get it done as quick as you can, slap it on. And, back then as well, sort of 15 years ago, you weren't really held to many standards in the sense of, cladding requirements come in there with the manufacturer's specifications, and it had to be fixed in a certain way. It was just slap it on and no one cares about it, and fortunately that's still how it is today. Yeah, and it was all driven, it's all driven by those volume builders going, this is what you're getting paid. Yep. And so you've just got to bust your ass and get shit done. But, mate, that job that we're mentioning that we're, and look, we would normally never go near a job like that. But we've got a little bit of a relationship with the client. The client did ask us, I think, years ago whether we'd be interested. And again, it's all dollar driven. They just didn't have the dollars to build what we deliver. Yep. But knowing what the contract value is that those clients sign on that house, literally as soon as I see it, it's 20 to 30% lower than what it should be to be done at a low level finish. Yep. It's insane. Yeah, no, I hope you don't mind. I'm probably going to save that video of yours, because it's just the perfect example. We get asked all the time from people we know or whatever. Even my brother-in-law at one stage years ago come and said, I've been quoted a price for a house of this. Can you do it the same kind of price? Surely you can help me out. I was like, man, I can't even do that at cost for that price, So I don't know how they're doing it. And they don't believe you. People don't believe you when you tell them that. And so having ammo like that to say, it might not all turn out that bad, but... Oh, mate, it's like I said in the video, we have to strip the entire outside of that house. The doesn't
cladding
surprise me though, that's the thing.
The cladding, for two reasons. It is disgusting how badly it's installed. Yep. But the main reason is it is not even close to how hard he specified.
Yeah. But and I think I actually made a comment on that video of yours. Like, it shocks me that companies like that, it takes a COVID to come along and them to go insolvent, you know?
Yeah.
Because I just know from us who deliver a really good quality product for every client, we, you know, do everything as best as we possibly can.
Yeah.
You still get those little niggling issues.
Yeah.
12 months after a build.
Yeah.
You know, we go back 3 years later sometimes, and the client might just ring up and say, hey, look, this is doing this or whatever. And, you know, and we go back, and it might not necessarily be a defect, but, you know,
You put in a bit of time, you keep everyone happy.
You keep everyone happy, and you do it, and it costs you a little bit of money, but, you know, that goes on, that, you know, it does wonders for your business, so to speak. But those guys must have thousands and thousands of complaints about them, and probably not forced to fix any of them.
Mate, I don't know. Probably shouldn't say too much on this podcast, but like I've actually got a good mate at the moment. Literally moved into a house 3-4 months ago.
Yep.
And an average size volume builder, and he was sending me photos towards the end and asking me lots of questions, and I was like, he didn't tell me it was his own house, and I was giving him all this feedback. Like, I think he started off by asking me, oh, my mate's building this house, can you give me some feedback?
Yep.
And so I was pretty blunt with some of my feedback, but and he ended up bringing it up and saying, oh, look, that's actually my place, like, it's been a disaster, but he should have come and talked to you. And anyway, they moved into this house 3 months. There was all this stuff not finished, rendering not done, painting not done, just all fiddly stuff. The builder was hounding him to pay, so he thought he was doing the right thing. He paid the full payment so they could move in.
Yep.
And he's literally been hounding the builder for 3 or 4 months now to come back. And anyway, he sends me a picture only a week or two ago, a screenshot, and the builder's gone into insolvency, liquidation. And he sends me this message with this picture and says, oh, I guess that's why he's not returning emails or phone calls. And I was like, oh, shit, mate. Sorry to hear. Anyway, he tells me last week he's rung up our licensing body and said, hey, look, not trying to like get nasty with anyone, but like, what do I do? This has happened. How do I go about it?
Yep.
And the guy on the phone at the licensing body has basically said to him, mate, this is happening all over the place at the moment. Like, do you know what it's going to cost to repair what you got to do? And he's like, oh, look, I don't know. I'm not a builder. It's a bit of rendering, some painting. There's some issues with the overlay timber floor. He said, I don't know, off the top of my head, $10,000 to $20,000. And the guy at the licensing body has said, oh, mate, look, builders are falling over everywhere. It's taking a long time to get through this process. You're going to have to go to adjudication. Like, you're going to have to get on a list of all the, whatever the creditors or whatever all this shit is.
Yep.
He goes, oh, look, we're pretty much advising that if it's between 10 and 20,000, you're better off fixing it yourself. So it doesn't matter on the dollar value. Like, this shits me. Like, and I'll probably get in trouble for talking about this, but our licensing bodies don't do fuck all for us. And it shits me that our clients and my mate, but we have to pay insurance on every job we build.
Yeah, and it's a lot of money too.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And people just don't get the service they should get for that.
Yeah.
Like, if they're gonna charge us to have licenses, including our trades, and they're gonna charge us huge amounts of money to insure the work. Like, we can't start a job until we pay insurance.
Yeah.
Mate, they should be looking after our clients like there's no tomorrow.
100%.
If a client has an issue with waterproofing or a builder or trade not showing up or 12 months down the track, like something wrong, they shouldn't be getting pushed under the table and flogged off.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Like, it's terrible.
And like the only time we've really had a run-in with that licensing body, it wasn't even running, I should take that back. But client we still talk to this day we had a bit of an ongoing thing with a contractor that we had through on that job, and it was the last time we used them. I think from memory it was the first or second time we did. Anyway, client was absolutely wrapped with the product we had and the experience they had, and they wanted to make a complaint based on the product that this contractor had delivered. And they couldn't make a complaint about that contractor, therefore they had to make a complaint about us. And then essentially, because the contract was with us anyway, we had nothing to stand on, so we had to fix it, which we were going to anyway. But long story short, the client ended up saying, oh, well, I don't want a black tick against Allen Brothers' name because I'm happy with them. We're just not happy about this contractor. And didn't want anything to do with it, you know, absolutely nothing to do with it. And, you know, nothing came of it really, except we just sorted it out. Well,
mate, look, the whole industry needs a massive shake up, and that is one area that really gets under my skin. But like, that's the other thing, like as builders, like, again, people question margins and what we make and things, but we are the one. Like once we sign a building contract and we start building, like we are the one person. It doesn't matter. Like it shits me. Like they charge all our subbies licensing fees.
Yeah.
So why aren't they responsible?
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
Like,
that's where I was getting at with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and look, nothing, like we use great subbies, and look, I take my hat off to my subbies. Like every now and then we might have a little issue come up, but man, they're straight back there and they'll sort it out, and they make sure we are happy. So but look, there's a lot of trades out there, and again, I think like that job that we're pricing up to rectify and hopefully finish, every contractor not every job, no, the plumber and sparking stuff are all good, but like the carpenters on that job, the roofers on that job, the plasterer on that job, the waterproofer, like there is so many trades on that job that should be held accountable. Even though the builder's gone broke, the trade should be held accountable because they haven't done their work to code.
Yeah, and they know that they're not doing it to code either, but they've gotten away with it that many times in the past.
Yeah.
If you're not getting pulled up for it, they're just like, oh, well, get in, get out on the next one, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, it's all coming to the surface now. How many homes aren't built to code day in, day out?
I feel so sorry for Aussie homeowners. Like it's a minefield. Like and like, for a homeowner, like how do they know? Like if you're a builder, you got an office, you're running a business, and because like the other big thing for me, and I think I mentioned in that video, like that job had scaffolding up.
Yeah.
Like literally, if that builder hadn't gone broke, the painters would have been in there like within a week or two.
Yeah.
Everything it would have been very, very hard to make that job look any good, but basically the renderer would have come in, rendered over it. It would have been very hard to tell where the fixings were, and the renderer probably would have hidden a lot of the unevenness of the cladding and shit.
Yeah.
Painter would have painted over it. The client wouldn't know any difference until 6 months, 12 months time when it's fallen apart.
And that's what I was saying about my experience with that kind of market years ago. And one of the reasons why I got out is because it's just that attitude about not caring about that next person.
Yeah.
Get in, get out. It's not your responsibility. But it should be that painter goes in there and goes, I'm not painting over this junk because my paint's going to be defective because of the subgrade that it's been painted on, you know? So but I still remember a case where I was a carpenter, and I was, the old brick veneer homes, and next to it, you might have a glue board that butts into it, so you got to build a little timber frame that goes into it and goes all in plane and whatever. And I remember getting the levels out and building this frame, and that brickwork was, from memory, like whatever it was, 15, 20 mil out over 600 mil, this parapet that I had to build to butt into it, and I still remember going, do I just build to that, or do I make mine plumb, my work's good? And I was like, nah, bugger it. I'm putting mine in plumb and doing it all how I know it should be.
Yeah.
And if they've got a problem with the bricky, then sort it out. And I knew that they would probably render it out or do whatever they were going to do, And anyway, I still remember the supervisor coming in and basically telling me that I had to pull my work down that was right to meet the junk that was there, and that was one of the things that I'm just like, I can't deal with this. So,
mate, obviously we could go down a rabbit hole all day with this. I did the same thing. Like I built up a huge carpentry gang. We contracted for quite a few years, and same story, bricklaying. Like we'd come back, the roof had gone on, and we'd come back to do sophites and cladding. Yep. Like as you know, with those volume builders, like the windows go in, the bricks pretty much finish at the top of the windows, and your sophites just run through over the top. And mate, our windows are in, and like the tops of my windows were millimetre perfect. Yep. And yet the brick
no lasers back then either.
The brick, we had a laser.
Water level.
Oh, and actually, mate. I used to always have 2 water levels in my truck, and like I remember I used to employ people, and they go, "What the hell's that? Like, what do you do with it?"
Yep, I had one up until not long ago actually. So
they're fantastic.
I'm converted to the lasers. So.
I might have to go back to them actually. But anyway, the bricks between the windows, like some of the panels might have been 15, 1800. One side would be 20 mil low on the window, the other side would be 20 mil high. Like they're all over the shop. Yep. And it was face brick. And like I remember saying to the supervisor, mate, if I put my sophites in level, the difference between all the bed joints on these bricks is going to stand out like dog's balls. It's like, you need to get the bricky back here. And they're like, oh no, put them in, mate. Like you're here to do the sophites, get the sophites done.
Yeah. And that's the attitude, And it again, we could go down a place with it, but even talking rates to some people, and I remember when first talking about what to allow for supervision on a job and X amount of percent, and they're like, oh no, you can get supervised into jobs for a percent and a half, like 1.5% for a whole job, and that explains it, because they run in, tell you to do something dodgy, and bugger off to the next one.
Yeah.
So.
No, we'll move on because otherwise we'll spend all day banging the volume bills out and stuff, and we're not. I don't want to go down that hole, but mate, let's get back to more quality stuff. So, you're doing boutique homes, you got a great team doing quality work, you got great relationships with designers and architects. How do you keep that momentum going? Like, what have you got some systems in place? Like, how do your subbies know, I guess, your expectation and what they need to deliver on every project?
Well, again, like majority of our subbies have been working with us for a long time, and then when we do introduce a new one for whatever reason, like recently we've had our electrician for a long time, he's decided to hang up the boots, and lucky enough we got onto a new Sparky that did a bit of contracting work under him, so he knows a little bit about it. But we just get them into our office straight away. We have a procedure for that where they sign up a trade agreement with us and sort of know our expectations from there straight away. We sort of run them through our process and how we do things. We run a pretty good online job management program that does everything from our estimating right through to, we use purchase ordering systems and work orders, and it's what we schedule on, and to do that they have to be linked into it. So admittedly, we don't have 100% of people there. There's still some people that won't sell to the system, but
like tradies just hate technology.
Which I understand. But like once they get on it, they see the importance of it and see the value in it. So anyway, that's what we've started to implement in the last few years. And again, it's not that often we have to do that because we're using the same guys, but we've got those systems in place, and it all comes back from quoting the job. We've got some really good systems in place, so basically that system we've got all preloaded to-dos through the job, and so as soon as something goes to contract, we automatically pings up all these to-dos that we've got to do before we start turning soil and all our obligations in the contract. And anyway, that just leads all the way through. The schedule's linked to all of our guys, so if we adjust our schedule, we've got a system in place that every Friday Kurt and I go through all of our jobs and look 2 weeks ahead on the schedule, and if we need to adjust things here or there, we do it right then and there. They automatically get emailed to say that, hey, the schedule's adjusted for whatever reason. We don't just rely on that. We pick up the phone and say, hey, did you just see that we've done this? Probably don't do that as often as we used to, but because we know the guys that use the system.
But that's how you get trades wanting to do your work and showing up when you need them to show up.
Well, it's good that you said that, because like over the last 2 years of craziness, COVID craziness, where scheduling was basically a full-time job, and it was hard.
Mate, I felt like through COVID, I was talking to like myself, my wife works in the office, and my supervisor Todd, like it felt like every day we were doing the same shit. Like ringing the same people we just run the day before to tell them that there's another delay.
It was getting pretty crazy. But with our system in place, it did. Tradies and all of our guys were prioritising us because we did. You were moving it quite often, but they knew you were on top of it. And we didn't move it daily like the same people, but we would try and give a bit of contingency here or there for it. But it just worked. And then from there, again, our guys have stayed loyal, and when we moved to plasterer, because it moved a couple of weeks or whatever, that couple of weeks they prioritised us over some other guys because they knew we were on top of it, So no, it's a credit to all of our guys, not just us, because our guys on site, they were pulling their hair out with the amount that was changing and all that too. But
it obviously takes time to set all that sort of stuff up, but like the dividend it pays to your business is huge, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. And I'm someone, whether you call it a bit ADD, or I think that term gets thrown around quite a bit now, maybe I'm not that, but like when I set my mind on something like that, or like a bit of new technology comes in and someone says, oh, you should check this out, I'd spend half an hour on it, go, I need to know more, and I'd nearly push away everything for a week and just study up on it, learn it, and go, yep, we're implementing this, and then change all the templates and all that. So from the next job, we're introducing this, and little things like weekly checklists. Like I said, it's a process now that Kurt and I sit down and look over the next 2 weeks of schedules. It's not just that. It's if we've put any variations in for the job and that variation had an extension of time, allocated to it, we go and put that into our schedule and make sure we notify the client about it and say, you know, as per contract, we've just added another 5 days to our schedule, and it's actually visible on our schedule. So again, clients have got 100% access to it. They can
It's
see,
visible, it's honest.
here's the handover date, even that we're contracted to here, and you've got X amount of extension of times allocated to it. We're still aiming for handover here, but contractually we can hand it over back here, you know. So implementing those systems, and we're constantly learning, mate. Like it's not saying that we're 100% perfect now. We're just trying to get better and better and better. And
you just said you and Kurt catch up every Friday.
Yep.
Is that it? Every Friday you know what you're doing?
Oh, every day I know what I'm doing.
No, like for that schedule review, like every Friday that happens. Like how important do you think? Because I'm a big fan of this. Like consistency with. So every week I do my site visits with my clients the same day, same time. Camille and our supervisor do reviews of our schedule, same time. Same day every week. Like I do all my data and financing reviews, same time, same day every week. Like I think that having that consistency is massive. And that's something very small. Anyone can do that.
Yeah. Oh, it's like, admittedly, I haven't always been that scheduled and that, it's sort of something that I've just learned and implemented it. It just works.
But is it something like, for me, it's just like, I don't have to check anything.
Yeah.
Like I just know in my mind that it's this day and at that time I'm meeting to do that.
Oh, and put work aside, like even your personal life, like me and my wife share Google Calendar.
Yeah.
She sees what I'm doing every single day. She knew I was coming here today.
Yeah.
I was actually meant to be picking the kids up from daycare, and she hit me up 3 days ago. Oh, crap, you can't do that because you're going there. I was like, it's been on the calendar for 3 months, you know. So, but no, it just works, right?
Yeah.
And we try and book in, you know, like that scheduling. We 100% do that, but like, you know, every week on the same time, we're a little bit more flexible with maybe site meetings with people because you know, architects might not be able to meet at the same time every time, and again, we get thrown curveballs all the time as well. But that's another thing about. We call it the project manager weekly checklist, and just adjusting those schedules is one thing, but we've got, you know, probably 10 things on that item, and one is checking next week's schedule and just confirming all of those meetings too. And, you know, if you know your tile is starting, it's making sure that you've got that meeting in for the client and architect to come to a tile set out, walk through, and all those sorts of
mate,
not telling you anything you don't know. So.
Yeah, mate, we've gone next level with that. Like we're same time, same day every week. So part of our completing our contractual arrangement with our clients is they need to tell us the one day, the one time every week that they can meet. Once we sign contract, go straight in the Google Calendar. It's locked in.
It's there. I'd love to be able to do it. It's more so for Kurt and I think. You know, like,
so we
you get to throw in a curveball here or there. But.
We even like when it's a job that the designer or architect's involved. So it's a group discussion, and we all agree on the time. It goes in the calendar, and so. When we do our job schedule, all the meetings are organised around that time. So like when we do our schedule, we see where we've got the plumbing rough in. We'll always make the plumber start around that day that the client and the designer are going to be there. We'll do the electrical the same time.
That's good,
the time it saves, like you're not having to get on the phone, hey, can you meet this time? No, I can't. Oh, I'll ring you back. Oh, I might have to move that. Like the time just that has saved is insane.
Oh, scheduling just all around. It's just... Yeah, I can't believe some people still don't do it. But yeah, again, we're not that thorough with it, I suppose, in that sense. But yeah, we know that it's usually either, you know, for one site in particular, it's usually every Wednesday. If not, it's going to be a Thursday or whatever it might be. But yeah, definitely.
So you're taking time. Like you've got to check on that. Like each week, you got to say, hey, you're Wednesday, Thursday. Like you're taking time.
Yeah, you're probably right in saying it. There you go. We're not 100% perfect, are we? We might have to look into it. But no, it hasn't really thrown us too many curveballs yet. You know, again, we have that templated process where every time a job goes over into contract, full template of to-dos come up that are assigned to whoever they need to throughout the business. So not just in the business, but any trade can be connected to it, or the client as well. So we've got automatic template in there that those to-dos are actually linked to the schedule item. So again, that's templated already, where we've got client rough-in meetings for electrical and plumbing, tile set out, and so on and so forth throughout the job. And straight away, as soon as I click that button that's into construction, like, you know, 4 months before a walkthrough needs to happen, the client on their app gets a little to-ding saying that we're having a
Lock
client
it in.
walkthrough meeting that day, you know?
Yeah. You can't beat you can't beat being organised.
Yeah.
Like I know, again, mate, I'm the idiot that didn't do it for a long, long time and run around, pulled my hair out, telling everyone I had no time. But
Yep.
the reason I had no time was because everyone else's priorities became my priorities instead of me being scheduled and me setting
Yep.
the times that I can meet. But,
And I think like whenever you're adapting any process, whether it's scheduling or anything, like it takes time to learn it and actually see the benefits from it too.
Yeah.
And once you see the benefits, you're like, shit, why wasn't I doing this for years? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So, mate, moving forward, like, what's on the cards for Allen Brothers? Like, you got a lot of work ahead of you, a lot of great jobs. Like,
Yeah, look, we obviously coming out the other side of COVID, we, like every builder or trade, the industry went nuts. It was a little bit overwhelming with the amount of inquiries and that were coming through, and a lot of them were tire kickers, and a lot of them were realistic jobs that should have come through. But we sort of made the decision just to sit on our hands a little bit, not try and grow like a lot of people did and take on a little bit more than they can probably chew and all of that, and just tried to deliver the jobs that we did, and probably paid dividends, and in the sense that those relationships with the architects and that we already did have probably cemented that a little bit more. And then we delivered those projects well, and a few more have sort of reached out since, and so we've got a fair bit in the pipeline with new architects and that we've gone and had some. So we're pretty selective with that too. We don't go down the exact pack process of yours, which I'm not 100% sure exactly what it is, but I get the gist of it. But I'm sure it would be something similar. But we've got our own process that we stick to, and go and meet those new architects and designers and make sure it all fits. And obviously, because that, as you know and appreciate, like you've got the way that you run your business and your systems and your procedures, but you've got to fit in to some extent, because they run their own business. And then just because that architecture studio does it like that can be completely different to this and that. So we've developed that over the years. And that's probably one big thing. We used to be, and I'm probably really away from the original question, but that's probably one thing that years we just went, we're doing it for this job, would work off the way they sort of do things, and then you'd completely change things how you do it to this project, and the guys on site didn't know where to get their information from and all that. So we've obviously developed our system, and you adjust it to suit a little bit with new architects and that, and designers and clients, but basically every job's run exactly the same way. Consistency. So what's in the future? Like obviously those current jobs that we've got in construction at the moment, we're handing those over and starting a few new big ones, and a few other projects coming up with some other designers, which I'm looking forward to. So,
I look forward to seeing it on your Instagram, mate. You do great work. So you also do quite a regular catch up, don't you, with other builders? Like how important do you think it is? Like one of the reasons we do this podcast is to tell builders stories and help the industry out. And I'm on the mission to create a new one. But like I believe builders talking to other builders, like it's one of the most powerful parts of Live Like Build. Like the community we have created is just rock solid. Like builders need to talk to builders, don't they?
100%.
Openly.
No, the little group that we've created, I think it was around the same time that you started doing your builders breakfast groups and all that, I met a couple of guys through a seminar, and we got talking, and straight away knew that we were sort of in a similar position, and they had started this group I think about 6 months before I got involved, and there's 10 of us builders that catch up once a month. I've been involved in it for 4 years now. So
what's it called? It's called
Queensland Professional Builders Network, but it's going through a bit of a name change at the moment. One of the guys, I just won't mention any more about it, but he started the little group, and it's not from a monetary point of view or anything like that, but he's right into the mental awareness of builders in the industry, and he's sort of just taken it down that path a little bit. But beside all that, that's not really why we started it. It's just a group that we catch up.
So what do you catch up monthly, fortnightly?
Once a month, every Wednesday. That's locked in the schedule. That's the one thing that, every month without a doubt. I haven't missed one yet in the 4 years that I've been there. It's like it's just a thing that I need to do. I don't care what I've got on, but that's a bit of a priority. And
it's just unreal to sit around and be a part of groups.
The last 2 years of craziness, mate. Like, and we've had some guys cry at the table and open up, and big burly blokes that generally wouldn't talk to anyone about it, let alone competitors. I say that with quoted terms, and that's one thing that I'm not sure if I've heard it from you, but I know we've discussed it in our group before. Like let's say architects or any real professional industry, really, they all go to university and have this really big network of people, and they go to uni together, and when they come out, if they work for someone else or create their own practice and they come up with a hiccup somewhere or they need some information, they're straight on the phone, and they've probably got 10 or 15 people to chat to and ask for advice, and hey, what can we do here, what can we do there? And we usually do our apprenticeship with one or two other people, come out, do your own thing, and straight away you're competitors with each other, and it's just crazy. And so you'd like, mate, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but you know, the amount of times that you'd go, how do I build this, or how do I price this in the job? I haven't come up with this before. And I actually did it this afternoon. I'm pricing a job where I haven't done a certain thing. Straight away on the email chain with those 9 other guys, hey guys, I'm about to do this, has anyone got some information we can do? Bang. You know, years ago I would have just maybe thrown a number or had a guess and sort of
networking is enormous. Like you say, like it's for everything. Like it's for knowledge, it's for mental health, and like I know with my builders breakfast group, a lot of the time it's really just guys look forward each month to just be able to have a chinwag. Like, how you going? What's going on? How's your team? What are you doing? What work you got on? Like. Talk about whatever, supplies, rates, like.
And on the other side of things too, like we straight away agreed to a common rate, apprentice, mature age apprentice, and a tradesman. And when some guy hasn't got work for their blokes for 2 weeks, you know, you ring up and just send it out to the group, and you've got your guys covered for a couple of weeks, you know, and they're screaming out for guys. So you know, it's helped out in that sense as well. That
is a fantastic idea. Like we actually had a call in Live Like Build just yesterday about this, where sometimes you've got to make those calls, like when things are slow, like don't be afraid to, but like build a network so you can give your guys, and don't be afraid to like pull your ego back and say, hey, I'm a bit quiet for a bit. Here's a couple of guys. Can you?
And that's why we made negotiated rates, because we didn't want, you know, I'm not saying our guys would, but like if money gets talked between your staff or anything like that, or he might be charging a little bit more or paying a little bit less than what you are and things like that, it was just a negotiated rate. You know, if you're making $1 on it, so be it. If you're losing $1 on it, who cares? You're keeping your guys busy and predominantly getting paid for it, you know? It works out well.
Hey, mate, just to go back quickly, like you were just talking about competition. Like, do you think that's, like, I just want to get your opinion on it, because, and I'll say why, because, and I'll probably get it wrong, but do you think builders are competing against each other?
Oh, I personally don't. No, there's plenty of work around.
Yeah, there's miles of work. But I've only learnt this recently. Like, we all look at competition as a bad thing, but like competition actually comes from, I think it's like a Greek or a Roman word, and it was to do with the Olympics. And the whole idea of competition is to make your opponent better.
Yeah, makes you better.
That makes you better.
Yeah.
So that's, builders should be working together. And it's fine to talk about it as competition, but competition actually means help your mate out, help the builder out.
And the industry is small, like in the sense of, before we had that network and openly chatting to other builders and all that, it doesn't happen so much now because we don't really tender on too many jobs. But when you were tendering, it wasn't long before 10 suppliers would say, yeah, you're pricing against such and such and such and such. And 9 times out of 10, I'd know the person anyway. By any means, it's not meaning that you'd ring them up and go, oh, what are you quoting it for? Oh, you know, whatever it is. Like, you'd still just keep to your own race or whatever. But it's a small
tendering
world
should be outlawed.
Oh, especially in the custom home builder game. You know? Maybe if you, the cookie cutter thing, but we won't go there again. But
like even on, I got invited to it was the Institute of Quantity Surveyors. They had a talk at Bond University only a month or two ago. It was a debate, and I got invited along, and it was amazing. Like, so a lot of it was from like big civil and infrastructure works and high-rise and stuff. But it was all relatable. And it was amazing hearing that, like, they've got the same problems, just at a lot bigger scale. And like one of the examples they were talking about is like tendering does not work at any level. And they were using big road infrastructure projects and rail projects, and they were saying, like, you'll get huge contractors pricing these $1 million road upgrades, and because of lack of detail, all they were talking about, and I think it applies to our game, lack of experience and knowledge. Like there might be a road upgrade that's got 10 to 20 on-ramps and off-ramps on it. And so a lot of these big civil contractors just have a rate per on-ramp, but they don't take into account that one on-ramp's 3 lanes, one's 1 lane, one's only on one side of the road, like all these different variables.
That's crazy.
And then the government, the reason I'm talking about all this is because, like, we see on here in the media, like all these big projects just go way over budget. Like, so tendering is something that across the board just needs to be outlawed, and it needs needs to come back to choosing contractors or builders that you build a relationship with. Like, I don't know, I'm sure you're the same, but like, just because a client chooses to work with me and I'm the only builder involved in a project doesn't mean for like with anything in that job that I bump my price up. Like at the end of the day, like I know what my overheads are and I know what profit I want my business to make.
Yep.
And that's what I put on every job.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Like,
well, I don't adjust my figures to suit any particular project or anything. It is what it is. You cost it up and you have your margins on top.
Yeah.
And
at the end of the day, like profit is not a dirty word. Like everyone is in business to make money. And like the last thing you want is like that video I did where you've chosen a builder that hasn't priced it correctly. And
you know, you're probably in the same game as us too. And I say this carefully, but majority of the clients that we build for and the projects we do, like they afford those homes because
they're successful.
They're successful,
yeah.
And
yeah.
they all appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that's another important topic. Like, you've got to be like builders need to be respected, and if you don't respect yourself, you don't put time, energy into your business, and have systems and processes, you really can't expect to be working for clients that don't respect you if you don't respect yourself. Yeah. So if you're doing things correctly, you're running a business, you're pricing things correctly, you're selling the value you add, then people appreciate that.
Yeah.
And like you said, like most of the clients, they're successful in whatever field they work in.
Yep.
So, and when you're in that sort of mindset, everything works so much better because everyone respects each other.
Yeah, and when you go into, you know, those situations where you're meeting a client for the first time or meeting a designer for the first time or whatever, you just, I don't know, I go into it, I just had another meeting yesterday and you just go in confident, and that's not being cocky. Yeah. It's just being confident because you know that you're running a really good business. Yeah. You know what you need to know, and I'm not afraid of telling them exactly how it is too. Yeah. And I'm not being cocky when I say that. It's like
I love it, mate. Like,
at the end of the day, if they get triggered by anything that you say or do, which is 100% just truth, then it's not going to work out anyway. And you just move on.
And you don't want to spend the next 12 months trying to have that false relationship.
Yeah, and just going into those meetings as well, like you quickly put all that thing aside, and you can just, if you're not nervous and not worried about it because you're not worried about that side of things, you can just be yourself, and then the client sees that as well.
Yeah.
See that you're pretty easy going. You know, anything to do with contracts and that, like, yes, it's good to know it all, and well, you should know it all, all your contracts that you sign, but I nearly say to every client, I'm really hoping that the best contract is the one that we sign now and put in the bottom of the drawer and never look at again, and I can nearly guarantee that that's what you're going to get building with us, because that's the type of people that we are, you know. I remember that. But a
lot of that comes from, like, you've said a lot of things that resonate 100% with me tonight, like on this podcast, like consistency. You know your numbers and your data.
Yep.
You're covering all your cost. Like, you've got a good team. You're building good culture. You've got good relationships with your contractors. Like, that hasn't happened overnight, but to get that value that you're adding, it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And for that cost, you're going to deliver a client a great experience.
And look, you know, it's going back to the thing about tendering and coming at costs, and I get it too. Like, you know, clients that are spending, like, most of our projects are between 800k and sometimes 3 million or whatever, but majority maybe 1.2 to 1.5. It's a lot of money, and putting a trust in someone that they might have only just met. And I sort of get it if they do want to get another price from somewhere, and that's, you know, going back to the quantity surveyor. I'm actually open to the idea. Yeah. And I don't actually mind if we come in dearer, because I ask if I can pick it apart and tell them why I'm dearer. And 9 times out of 10, it's enough to get us over the line anyway.
Yeah.
You know, the project into construction, because even that we charge for preliminary service and all that type of thing, it's still not charging them to, hey, you have to sign a contract with us.
Yeah, they're not tied to you.
Not tied to us, you know. But yeah, you know, I think that good, honest approach, and saying it for how it is. And I remember I was going to say before about having that honesty and going to those meetings and all that. I remember that large contract that I told you, that first one 9 years ago. I still remember, and Kurt and I joke about it all the time. He walked into it and he was really nervous and, you know, really trying to get the project over the line. And then the architect had mentioned, because the architect was involved with this meeting, and he said something, I can't remember what it was, and Kurt turned around and said, yeah, we're just a couple of dumb chippies trying to have a crack. And from there, you know, they all just had a good laugh about it, and I was sort of just bright red in the face, like, shit, why did he just say that? Like, come on, we've been trying to paint this picture that we know what we're doing. But yeah, you know, and we have a joke about that. We sometimes tell new clients that that's what we said at that time, and that's how we sort of approach things. So
you said back in the beginning that you were pretty good with your numbers even on that job. But like, be honest with us, did you, on the way to that meeting, did you have any discussion about if they question your price, what are we going to drop it? Like, can we drop it? How much will we drop it?
Well, I'll be honest, we that we knew then and we know now that could have gone one of two ways. Could have buried us because we had no money behind, or it did what it did, you know. And we just basically hit our numbers everywhere, and that might have been fluke. It might have been just trusting what we had done. Again, I said I got that.
Did you have a discussion about if they questioned your price,
I can't remember. You're testing my memory. That's gone a long time ago. Probably not, because the reason for it, we had that quantity surveyor give us a bill of quantities, and they costed the job for us, and they came in $85,000 dearer than what we saw on a contract.
So were you nervous that a quantity surveyor was dearer than what you'd...
Yeah, looking back at it, because now I'm generally dearer than most quantity surveyors, and that's just from experience. But like, our overheads and all that have gone up slightly since then too. Like, we were two dumb chippies having a crack, you know. But we were on the tools all day, and it's probably something we haven't touched base on so far. Like, it's, you know, I might have been painting a picture here that's all been roses and lollipops. Like, it hasn't. You know, we were on the tools, like, you know, from 6 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, and coming home and till 11 o'clock at night doing paperwork. And, you know, at the time you got to, I don't think I was married then, no I wasn't, but, you know, that time of life comes, and kids come, and you're still doing all that, and, you know, it's been hard. And so again, probably stressed. It worked out. And looking back, like, if we had just gone in with the quantity surveyor's price, we would have made pretty good coin, you know. But we were just honest about the approach. You know, we went there with no real experience in the numbers side of things, but had that quantity surveyors. We had that new software of ours, which is estimating software. We just transferred all the figures. That software that we bought, I'd seen it previously, and I'd again dived really deep into it and just studied the shit out of it, and realised that there was a few things that the QS had left out, and vice versa, and just did all my own numbers. And then it came in 85 grand cheaper, and we were like, this could be enough to get the job over the line. And we just went to that meeting and said, here's what our QS has provided. It was 1.3 something or other, and we signed a contract for 1.25, and there was the honesty right there and then.
And having looked back, mate, 10 years and flying.
Again, hasn't all been easy, but
no, well, look, mate, we'll wrap it up. I could talk to you all night. Thanks very much for coming on. Look, for everyone that's listening, check them out, Allen Brothers Constructions. They do fantastic work. Boutique builder here in Brisbane, and I hope you've got a lot out of it today. I've definitely learned a lot, and the whole point of this podcast is just like we've done today, having a real chat, telling real stories about how it is in our game.
Thanks for having us, mate. Appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, thank you.
Look, keep listening and stay tuned, because we'll be dropping another episode very soon.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelifebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Dwayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.